Alright then, let's do it. Let's address the myriad of comments on my previous video. Specifically, people calling me out, saying that the MXES can't be Cassie's dad because he calls animatronics to Cassie's location, therefore killing her. There's a few things to dig into here. We're going to go step by step. The first one, and the most obvious, is that MXES does not harm Cassie. He reaches, he grabs, in my opinion, for the mask that's on her face to get her out of the network. But he doesn't kill the player. He doesn't harm Cassie in any way. Putting that to the side and getting back to the animatronics, let's start by when Cassie actually receives the mask. She's told by Helpy, with this security mask, you can locate and repair all those pesky security nodes that are locking down the mesh network here in the Mega Pizzaplex. Now, for a long time, people thought, and myself included, that Helpy, spelled with an I, and the veiny Mimic were at odds with each other, that Helpy the Blue Eye was good, and that the Mimic Yellow Eye was bad. Go watch MatPat's most recent video, because he has a theory that there are two AIs running. You have the Vanny network, which is Helpy, then you have the actual Mimic, the physical Mimic. He calls it two mimics, kind of I'm going to call one the network, and the other one I'm going to call Mimic. The one in the basement, the one with the yellow eyes, that is the Mimic. And supported here that Helpy with an eye, with these blue eyes, is not on our side and he is not a good guy. He's telling us to repair all those pesky security nodes. He wants us to shut down the security nodes and release the mesh network. You have to look at the wording in this. All those pesky security nodes, so he doesn't like them, he wants the security nodes gone, which would release the Mimic, that are locking down the mesh network. So the mesh network is not the nodes. The nodes are locking down a mesh network. A mesh network is interconnected bodies, obviously all meshed together, all speaking to each other. Similar to how Wi-Fi points in your house would look, repeaters. They're all connected and talking to each other. So that mesh network, as we say, is locked down. So right now, thanks to the security nodes, the things in the Pizzaplex, to my understanding, are not communicating with each other. And I believe that stretches to animatronics as well. They are not communicating with each other. On a side note, just to further corroborate that Cassie's dad is in the system and at the very least is in MaskBot, there is brain matter, organic matter stuffed into this suit. And MatPat raised the point that if the system is based off William Afton's memories, as we saw in Help Wanted 2, well, it's replicating what he did to the children in the missing children's incidents. It's taking victims and stuffing them into suits, as we see with MaskBot. So although Cassie's dad is stuffed into this MaskBot to a degree, he's also been integrated into the Vanny network, as we see with the mask. His consciousness has been integrated into it, and more importantly, the presence of the glasses and the rabbit ears, it says to me either one of two things. One, whoever set this up, presumably Vanny, is just having a laugh and making the MaskBot look like Jeremy. Or two, some part of the personality of Cassie's dad remains, and he's done these things himself as MaskBot. Whichever side of the fence you land on that, it doesn't matter. Let's push on to the animatronics again. So when you first start looking at the security cameras in Ruin, Mimic Helpy pops up and says, "Fun trick, huh? I created it using samples of your voice." This is soon after he's played an audio recording of Cassie's voice. Then Helpy with an eye pops up and seemingly agrees with him that this is no big deal and says, "Experienced employees use intercom recordings like this to direct animatronic performers to specific locations, for autographs and photo ops." So what this says to me is, firstly, Mimic in the basement is the one who can replicate the voices. That is the most important part here. The network Mimic, or wait, what did I call it again? The network, I think I said. The network I don't think it's a mimic. Yes, it's copied William's data or virus or Williams in there somewhere, but I don't think it is a mimic program. I think it is literally a network that contains William or contains some essence of William from the FNAF 6 fire, as opposed to the mimic that has learnt from him. So the mimic has copied the voice and played it, and Helpy has popped in. The network has said, experienced employees use intercom recordings like this to direct animatronic performers to specific locations. Now, people sort of hearken this back to FNAF 3, a bit of an Easter egg line. I think this line has been intentionally put in here to show us that the network has the ability to not only play recordings, but to direct animatronic performers to specific locations. It didn't say it audibly plays them, it just says use intercom recordings. The .mp3, right? It uses the intercom recordings like this to direct animatronic performers to specific locations. Now, it says employees can do it, but it's the one network. The network has that ability. And obviously this is seen in the security camera footage soon after. Cassie's voice pops up and says, "Gregory, are you there?" And suddenly Monty appears. Okay, established. Let's move on. Getting back to MXES, because that's what you're all here for. Helpy says, when we first detect the entity, alert, I am picking up an anomalous entity in the Vanny network. Please ask this entity to leave the area immediately. So a few things here. If you were a network and you were picking up an anomaly in your network, yes, you would advise a FAS technician, but the second line, please ask this entity to leave the area immediately. That last line says to me that Helpy knows what the entity is. It is aware of the entity, hence why it's saying, please ask this entity to leave the area immediately. It's not saying, I'll attempt to purge this anomaly. I will run a virus scan on this anomaly. None of the above. It's saying, please ask this entity to leave the area immediately. It knows the entity is going to have a physical presence, and it knows it responds to rational thought. So it's asking Cassie to communicate with it. It knows more about the entity already than we do. Established. Move on. Now for the crux of the video. The hat that everybody has hung their comments on. When we actually first encounter the entity physically, Gregory, the mimic, chimes in and says, Cassie, stay away from that thing. It's sending out some sort of distress signal and Monty is responding. Let me read that again. It's sending out some sort of distress signal and Monty is responding. That is not the entity summoning animatronics to our location. In no way is that the entity saying, "Sick 'em, boys." That is the entity sending out a help distress signal. That is something, the entity within the system using the security protocols available to itself, which is obviously the nodes, the physical appearance that it can manifest as, and a distress signal. Some sort of electronic beacon, I presume. It is sending out bloody Morse code, I don't know, and just saying, help, we need help over here. A distress signal, specifically called a distress signal. And Monty is responding. So the mimic is aware that Monty is responding to this distress signal going out. I don't believe the entity is aware or has noted that the animatronics are responding to it because the mesh network is locked down. What I do know is that the mimic is aware of this, that Monty is responding to the distress signal, and he can't have Cassie die. He is warning her because he needs Cassie to shut down the security nodes. So whether it be unintentional on the entity's part, that's what I'm guessing, because it's just this sliver of an entity that is within the security system. And then just to cap it off, as I say, the MXES system is the security system that has been built to keep the mimic under wraps. The physical manifestation, I do believe that is different because of this little line here. Unknown entity has hijacked security protocols. So that's a system warning that has popped up from Helpy, from the network, Helpy with an I, William, whatever you want to call it. So in conclusion, my theory here is that Cassie's dad, Jeremy, at the end of Help Wanted 2, was stuffed into MaskBot, was integrated into the Vanny network, manifested himself through the MXES network in Ruin as the entity. I believe Jeremy is the entity. It is separate from the security system, and he is using the security system to try and help Cassie, to try and remove the mask, to send out a distress signal to get anybody to that pizzaplex that he can to help her. And unfortunately, in sending out those distress signals, that is what summons animatronics to Cassie's location. He is unwittingly doing it. The Mimic knows it is happening. The Mimic also wants it to stop because the Mimic needs Cassie to shut down the security nodes. That's a lot to take in, but I believe it's the best answer we have. If you have another answer, feel free to let me know in the comments below. But right now, I believe that Jeremy, Cassie's dad, is MXES, and I can't wait to be proven wrong because we've got some great games coming up this year. We've got some awesome FNAF stuff coming out, and I'm excited. I really am excited. See you all in the next one. Bye-bye.